All righty, folks. Welcome back to another episode of The Uncomfortable Chat. I am Steve Wheatcroft, your host. We have an awesome one for you today. The godfather of sports psychology himself, Dr. Bob Rotella, stops by the pod to talk. Plain and simple, folks, if you have a junior golfer or if you have a junior athlete of any kind, please make him sit down and listen to this one. It's 30 minutes long, so you'll keep their attention span. This was absolute gold from the king of the business, and I can't thank Dr. Bob enough for coming on. His answers to some of these questions are so spot on, and take it from a guy who struggled with his own mental well-being at post-golf. I wish, like crazy, I would have done a lot of the things that he speaks on in this interview, because I can guarantee you I would not have been in the same place I was, going through my own little mental struggles. So please enjoy the listen. It's incredible. So without further ado, I give you Dr. Bob Rotella. I now want to welcome on a very special guest. He's one of the greatest minds in performance psychology, and his clients have gone on to win over 80 majors in golf. The godfather of sports psychology himself, Dr. Bob Rotella. How are we doing this morning, Doc?
Great, Steve. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Thank you. I appreciate you coming on. I've been a big fan of yours for years and everything that you're teaching to the world, and I'm excited to have you on. So appreciate the time.
Good to be with you.
I'll start out with this. So I read a quote in regards to your teaching style that I'd love for you to elaborate on. The school of psychological thought Rotella has built his golfing philosophy around is the idea of free will, where golfers can choose to be confident, choose to be focused on their process of hitting shots, and choose how to react to adversity. Can you explain this to our listeners, and also how free will can work negatively against you?
Well, I mean, first of all, anybody that I help, they have to agree or believe that as human beings, we have a free will. And a free will means we get to choose how we think about ourselves. We get to choose our dreams. We get to choose our ideas. We get to decide when we want to let go of some dreams and take on others. And what goes with it is you have to take personal responsibility for how you think and react to things that happen to you in life. And you have to hold yourself accountable. So that's how that all fits together. I suppose you could say that free will could cause you to go for things that you end up not getting everything you're chasing. I mean, anytime you go for a dream, which I talk about a lot, there's always the possibility that all of your dreams aren't going to come true. And so you have to be able to deal with that. That's kind of the risk you take when you go for big dreams. The other side of it is just fit into the middle, be normal, be average, be like everybody else. And dreamers kind of go after things that there isn't a great possibility of getting. That's kind of what excites them. But anyways, that's where I'd start.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think a lot of people get lost along the way. You get lost in the day-to-day grind, so to speak, golf specifically, that you just go out there and you work towards a dream. And I think a lot of times you forget the goal in mind. It's just, you get stuck in the day to day and you forget that this is an incredibly hard thing to achieve, whether it's playing, at the collegiate levels or, dominating the junior levels or even professional golf. So I think it's always important to keep that free will at the front of your mind. I want to give you a quick story from back in 2016. So I was playing on the PGA Tour at the time. I was at the Canadian Open up at Glen Abbey, and I had a good Saturday. I moved up to third place. I was paired with Dustin Johnson, who was world number one at the time, in the next to last group. And I went out there and I was nervous as can be, obviously. To be fully transparent, I didn't want the pairing because it was just going to be a lot of hoopla that I didn't want trying to win my first ever PGA Tour event. And I went through the process of just hitting one shot at a time the entire day. And I just was methodical about it. I'd focus on that next shot at hand, and that's all I worried about. And I made a putt on 15, and I hadn't looked at a leaderboard in about 4 or 5 holes. And I made a putt on 15, about a 30-footer that went in the middle of the hole. And I just remember my first thought was, holy cow, I'm about to do this. I'm about to get my first PGA Tour win. And it's the first time all day that I thought about a result instead of the process at hand. And I had 2 easy par fives coming up, which I hit perfect drives right down the middle and had, long irons into the par fives. And I had a lob wedge into the 17th hole at par four. And I played those holes 2 over par. And I dissected that round 100 different ways. I ended up finishing 5th in the tournament. I lost. And I dissected that round because it was going so flawlessly for the entire day. And I was playing so much better than pretty much everybody there. I got myself tied for the lead with 3 easy holes to go, and I just completely squandered it. But again, looking back, and the only thing I come up with was I went goal-oriented instead of process-oriented. Instead of thinking about the next shot at hand, I started thinking about winning a golf tournament for the first time all day. Can you kind of break down a little bit of that outcome focus versus a process focus? I know that's a big thing of yours.
Well, I mean, I think it's very difficult for the average person who plays golf to understand what it really means to stay in the present moment and stay into the process. And I don't care how good a player is, usually when they make the mistake you just described, most of the time it doesn't work out very well. And that's why you do a lot of preparation in advance, so that, I mean, you just get so into, and you train yourself to stay in the present until the round's over. And it's not just in golf, it's in every sport. All anxiety is either in the past or in the future. So, I mean, staying into the process of staying in the moment, which is why we call it the precious present, because it's very precious. And I mean, if you think about it, most people are so curious. They're always trying to figure out whether they're going to win or not win, or what they're going to shoot, or what they might shoot. And it makes it very difficult to play this game. It's partially why it's such an unbelievable game.
Yes.
And it's a fundamental. It's like, when I look back, and when we talk about people who've struggled when their career comes to an end or they don't get what they want, I always go back and talk about, well, there are certain fundamentals in life that are very process oriented, have always worked. Like for parents to really emphasize the importance of education. In other words, their kid's in love with golf. The parent better make it like, all I care about is you getting good grades in school and taking really good courses and doing your studies and learning the discipline of compartmentalizing. In other words, there's a time and a place for golf. There's a time and a place for school. There's a time and a place for friends. I mean, that would be one fundamental for parents and for kids. And basically for the parents to say, I don't care how good a golfer you are, if you don't do this academically and behavior-wise and attendance-wise, you're not going to be playing golf. Because it's really easy in today's world. We get so excited about kids who are prodigies or have talent, or once we think they have potential. And a lot of parents end up, when they see that, they get more excited than the kid, and they want to be the kid's buddy instead of their parent. And you got to remember, you got to be their parent, and it takes some discipline to do that. I think the second thing I'd say, is I think you got to really come to grips with the fact that you got to choose the right friends. So I mean, and again, parents play a role in that, and who do you hang around, and not letting them hang around kids who have certain bad behaviors. And I would say that includes friends who are motivated, kids who are disciplined, kids who have good habits. Like in today's world, not spending a lot of time with friends who are into drinking or into drugs or into just playing computer games all day. And that's partially why education becomes important. And I'm not talking necessarily in today's world about formal education. It might be that you're homeschooled, but are you really teaching your kids the importance of reading or lifelong learning? Because I see some players from Europe I work with who didn't even finish high school, but man, are they into learning. I mean, they read a lot. They're very intelligent. They're very articulate. they're into marketing, they're into finance. I mean, they've learned a lot about other things on their own, or through the game of golf, you get to meet a lot of really successful business people. And are you really sitting down and spending time asking them questions about their career? Or, gee, maybe I could come to your workplace and kind of learn about your job. But all of that becomes a part of it. I think the other word that comes to my mind is parents who help their kids keep sport in perspective. In other words, it's not everything. It's not, in other words, don't let them put all their eggs in one basket. And that's hard to do in an age of specialization. Let's face it, kids are getting college scholarship by their second year in high school. So it means kids are specializing very early, but it doesn't mean you don't have other things in life that are important to you. And that's where compartmentalized learning, there's a time and a place that when you're playing golf, lock in the golf. When it's time to study, be into your study and don't be in class thinking about your golf game. When it's time to socialize, be into socialize. And finding people who have similar values, is a big, big part of it, because I think that's where you start learning resilience. Like if you're really gifted at golf, it comes pretty easy to you at a very young age. That isn't the best way to learn coping skills. You don't learn a lot of resilience. You don't learn a lot of grit. You don't learn a lot of mental toughness from things that come easy to you. You learn it from things that come really hard to you. Like I remember in my family, my parents made us all play a musical instrument. As a high school student athlete, it wasn't something that really interested me. But for about 11 years, I played the clarinet. And my dad's whole thing was, good. It's going to teach you something that you're not really naturally good at. It's going to take a lot of discipline because you're not even that interested in it. And it's going to make you, and so there were a lot of good things when I look back that came from it. And part of it was my parents were very disciplined. And I see that with a lot of families who are disciplined about not letting their kids get involved in drinking at an early age or drugs at an early age or hanging around the wrong kids or just habits. So, I mean, unfortunately, habits end up ruling our lives. And it certainly makes life a lot easier if your parents help you get into good habits early in life. Or, maybe your swing teacher helps you get into really good habits. Because, like a lot of kids have a swing teacher they start with at an early age, and they really have a great relationship. But it's easy if you're really talented, if you show up late for your lesson, or you don't show up for a lesson, or you're not doing the practice they're asking you to do, they just kind of let it slide because they want to keep you as a student. So, I mean, all of those things have the potential to mess up people who are gifted, but it looks like it's a good thing when you're a young kid and you're getting away with murder, but it ends up costing you later in life. So it's a lot of that. And the reason all this is important is if you get to the age of 26 and you come to grips with the fact that maybe I'm not going to make it big in the game of golf. And it's hard to let go of that dream. But for a lot of people, they have to do that at some point. And that's where all those other behaviors and values and attitudes have prepared you for another life outside of sport. So, I mean, more and more in sports, and it's an interesting thing with this NIL stuff that's going on in college sports. Colleges, because they're paying these kids a lot of money now, they're starting to do a lot of career planning for their athletes starting their freshman year in college that they didn't used to do. So there's a lot more of that going on that hopefully will help. I mean, the NFL is starting to train football players very early in life for life and careers outside of sport, for careers in broadcasting, but whatever else they want to do. But I think the really on the ball athletes today are starting to do internships in the off season with companies and corporations and some other career track that they might be interested in. But I think if you're resilient enough and have a great imagination, which golf can be really good for, that's when you start imagining, what am I going to do with my life if I don't play golf? And is there a side of it? Well, if I want to make it, I got to be single-minded and I got to be locked in on golf and not let anything else. And I think that's ridiculously extreme. You can be a great golfer and have other interests in life. You know, I mean, look at the greatest golfer in history, Jack Nicklaus. I mean, he quit school early, but he had a pretty good sized family, lots of grandkids, started a company, did lots of corporate outings, started designing golf courses. I mean, he started doing other things. He had a lot of things going on, plus big game hunter, big time fisherman, played a lot of tennis. I mean, a lot of other things in life. So I mean, it's all going back to fundamentals, and probably the one I didn't mention that's pretty big is having a spiritual side to your life. I think that helps an awful lot because it keeps you grounded, keeps it in perspective. But anyways, go ahead.
No, I just wish believe me, I'm not going to interrupt that. That was, I wish I could bottle that up and give that to every child athlete. I wish I could give that to every parent of every child athlete. That's a big passion of mine, is watching how parents are doing the wrong things by their children now because of, to your point, they see the prodigy and they think, oh my gosh, my son's an incredible 9-year-old golfer. My son's an incredible 13-year-old baseball player, whatever it might be. And they lose sight of the bigger picture. Like, okay, there's a chance he might never play professional sports. There's a chance he might not even play in college, but they don't work on the holistic life while they're doing that, and which leads to bigger problems down the road. And that was one of my later questions for you was, you know, part of the stuff that led to my downward spiral and depression and alcoholism and all those things where I was Steve the golfer for 44 years, and one day I decided to quit, and, you know, I did it on my own choice. I walked away from the game, and I was 100% fine with that decision. I still am. I wanted to be with my kids and with my wife, and but I lost who I was completely, and I didn't do a good enough job while I was out playing on creating a holistic version of myself. All I was focused on was golf, 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 and all I knew was Steve the golfer. So one day when I woke up, and it might have taken me a year or two into my next profession before I realized it, but that day came one day and I just said, oh my God, who the heck am I? Like, why am I here? Like, I don't know who I am anymore. And again, that goes back to your statement there about just finding other things, yes, golf was an important part of my life. And yes, I had to work super hard to be good at it, but I also needed to be working on other things outside of the golf world so that one day when golf did go away, I was still a very happy person down inside. And that was an incredible answer. And yeah, thank you for that. I want to take a quick minute to thank our first ever sponsor at the Uncomfortable Chat, and that's Slipstream IT, a company redefining IT for life sciences. At Slipstream, they partner with a purpose and believe in the power of technology and the life sciences to enable people to live healthier, more fulfilling lives. You can learn more about Slipstream at slipstream-it.com. And now back to Dr. Bob Rotella. We have a mutual friend in Nick Price. Nick and I became good friends when I graduated college. I went down and started working at a place called MacArthur down in Hobe Sound, and Nick was one of the owners. And he just we took a liking to each other, and we played a lot of golf together down there. And so you worked with Nick Price for a while, and
long time, yeah.
Yeah, when Nick was playing on the PGA Tour from 1984 to 1990, he hadn't won any PGA Tour events, and then he started working with you around 1990. He went on to win 14 times from 1991 to 94, including the Open Championship at Turnberry, and he rose to number one in the world. What were the things that you worked on that created such a massive career turn for him?
Well, that's a good question. We worked on a lot of things, but when I think of Nick, first of all, I think of a really great guy.
Yes.
Again, who has other interests other than golf.
Yes.
I think of the fact that he has a really strong, great wife. Plays a big role. But when I think of Nick as a golfer, I think of Nick would describe it as when he would look at the target and his head would come back to the ball, he would describe it as having a camera in his left ear. And he was looking at the golf ball because he could see his target. And he got so good at doing that and really good at staying in the present. Obviously, we spend a lot of time on believing in yourself, and because that plays a really big role in everyone I work with. But, I think Nick got to the point where he could believe that he could do some incredible things. And it's interesting. You talk about MacArthur. I told one of the golf magazines somewhere in the last year, they were doing golf course rankings and asked me for my thoughts. And I picked MacArthur as my favorite golf course I've ever played. I think it's
Wow.
the best condition, best greens, best fairway. I mean, it's an amazing place. But,
Yes.
I think Nick got really good at staying present. Nick got a really good pre-shot routine and routine over the ball that he just wore out. And he just, he went through a period where he really played great golf. And then when he left golf, he's having a ball with life after golf, and that's a big part of it. And he's doing it his way. I mean, you don't, other than Ryder Cup stuff or international team stuff, I mean, he's having a great time, and that's what you'd like to see. I always tell people what we're aiming for is long-term health, happiness, and success. And you have to have a philosophy that works for that. A lot of people have a philosophy that only works if everything works out perfectly, and it's very short-term based, and it doesn't work very well. And so we're constantly talking about a very positive psychology, a very upbeat psychology, but it's hard when you're trying to be exceptional at something. I mean, let's face it, you're taking on the best players in the world, and the closer you come to winning and don't win, the more it breaks your heart. If you get beat, if you come in, next to last, it doesn't hurt as much.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and we live in a world of sport today, and I'm 75, so I mean, it's changed a lot. In today's world with media and social media, we put stars up on a pedestal that's so easy to lose perspective. Like we said earlier, even for parents to lose perspective, even for their teachers to lose perspective, even for agents to lose perspective. And it becomes all about fame and money instead of what are your values, what do you believe in, what's really important to you, and really having a plan to put your whole life together so you can have long-term health, happiness, and success. And that's where surrounding yourself with the right friends and lovers is a pretty big deal. Certainly a piece of it.
Yeah. That's the one thing that amazed me about Nick is I ran into him. I was playing down in Tampa at the PGA Tour event, and I just walked in to the main hotel area, and he was sitting in there having dinner, having a couple drinks, called me over. We started talking. I hadn't seen him in a few years, but he was as happy as I'd ever seen him. And I asked him if he missed golf. I hadn't seen him much out on the Champions Tour, and he's like, I enjoy playing golf, but he's like, I love, fishing with my boys that much more. I love being home with my family. I had a great career. Golf was phenomenal to me, but you could tell that he was very happy away from the golf course as well. So he didn't find all of his happiness on the golf course, and it was neat to see.
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll use you as an example, even though I don't know you that well. In the world of sport, with teams in particular and with golfers, we always talk about in a team sport, you got to recruit players and select players at the pro level that you can live with if you fail. Okay. That means, you did everything you could do. You believed in your teammates. You did all the little things you need to do to have a chance to see how great you can be. And you can live with it if you don't make it. Well, and when I look at what you're doing, it sounds like you went through some great times in your golf career. You kind of got into a problem, I guess, with drinking. And now look at you, you're getting past it. And so, I mean, it's looking at the big picture of life. I mean, you might turn this career into something fantastic. This may lead to something else. You don't know where it's going to take you.
Yep.
I remind people all the time, I don't even know what kind of neat things I'm going to get to do with my life at this point in my life. But I mean, it's okay to go through tough times. Everyone goes through them. Everybody makes some bad decisions that they can look back and go, God, I wish I hadn't done that. But I mean, you have to be able to look back and kind of laugh at it and say, well, it's a learning experience. That's what growth psychology is all about. And can you keep learning? And you keep trying to, now you're trying to not only learn from it yourself, you're trying to share what you're learning with other people, and I assume doing podcasts with people that might be able to help other people that have gone through struggles or difficulties.
Yep.
But, that's what kind of makes life kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody goes through it in a straight line and just has everything go right. I mean, look at the stuff Tiger Woods has been through.
Right.
and he's one of the great golfers ever, and it's like, he'll be okay. He's going to be, it'll make him stronger.
Yep.
Um, and that's what it's all about, is can you handle the tough times? Can you handle it when you make some decisions that don't work out? And that's really what grit and resilience is all about. And what we don't talk about enough is that's what actually makes us stronger. I mean, that's why sometimes late bloomers end up being more disciplined and mentally tougher than some precocious kids, because they did never go through a struggle until they were 26 years old. And all of a sudden it hits the fan and they're like, oh my God, how do I deal with this? And so you see that a lot.
Yep. No, I agree completely with everything you said there. And, luckily the guy upstairs was nice enough to send me back down and say, look, it's not, we're going to give you a second chance at life here and do things the right way this time. And I realized that alcohol wasn't the issue. It was the depression behind it and just trying to find happiness again. And that's all it was. And now I've started the podcast and I'm interviewing, people like yourself, like Annika. I had Michael Collins on from ESPN, just great, fun people, but you learn a lot from them as well. And I just want other people to be able to listen to things that we talk about and learn from them going forward. And I also started a foundation called the Mulligan Foundation, which focuses on mental health. And I'm going to be working with hopefully the PGA Tour, the LPGA, the AJGA, and just give them back whatever knowledge I have to be if nothing else, be able to bounce stuff off of me. And I can say, look, I went through the hard times. I went through the good times. I wasn't the best player in the world, but I worked my butt off to be very average on the PGA Tour, but I was out there for quite a while. And, I see now, looking back on my career, the things that might be able to help others. And that's all I'm trying to do.
Well, and think about it. If you put a lot of years on the PGA Tour, relative to the world, you are unbelievably successful.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, anybody makes it on the PGA Tour is separated themselves. And 1/10 of 1% of all the people in the world that have ever tried to play golf, or how many people get that good at anything?
Yeah. And it's hard to think about that when you're in the moment, but looking back, it's like you have to enjoy it for what it was and realize that you were pretty good at one point. And it's, you might get wrapped up in like, hey, I wasn't the top 10 player in the world, but you know what, you're still pretty good if you're in the top 200 in the world rankings or whatever it might be. But yeah,
it's interesting. Last night I had the University of Virginia women's golf team over the house. And one of the gals asked me about, why are you still having so much fun doing this? And I said, well, first of all, I really love helping people with their dreams. And I said, it's interesting. One of the things that makes it easy to do what I do is I spend 99% of my waking hours thinking about other people. One of the things that makes being a pro golfer really hard is it's easy to spend 99% of your waking hours thinking about you. It's hard to be happy if you spend all of your time thinking about yourself. And the more and that's why you see a lot of guys on the tour and on the ladies tour, it doesn't take long in their career before they start doing a lot of charitable stuff and start doing things for other people and start raising money for some cause that they're excited about. And I think the more you can get people to understand, there has to be, the more you make a purpose bigger than your golf. In other words, if I want to be one of the greatest golfers in the world so that I can go visit children's hospitals or raise money for kids or senior center or whoever, but I mean, the more you can get some percentage of your life thinking about other people, the easier it is to be happy. It's like, it's a very interesting thing.
Yeah, no, that very, very well said. Future Birdies is based in Charleston, South Carolina, and is a developing golf platform focusing on player wellness and performance, and is home to the #1 hat in golf. Visit futurebirdies.com to learn more, and be sure to enter promo code WHEAT for 20% off of your first order. That's promo code WHEAT for 20% off. I'm going to go off script here for just a second, folks. If you guys have a junior golfer, check out these flat bills. Come on, look at this thing. If I was a junior golfer, I'd want one of these. Check it out, man. Logo's awesome. Mesh back. Futurebirdies.com, 20% off. Plus, all proceeds go back to the Mulligan Foundation, a mental health foundation that I started to work on golfers' mental health. So Get your junior a flat bill. Check these things out, man. Future birdies, aim high, go low. Now back to Dr. Bob. I know you're on a tight schedule here. I got 2 quick questions for you, and then I will let you go. But this is probably the most important question I'll ask you today, and it's something I wish more juniors could work on. Now, both golfers, at younger ages and professionally in the amateur ranks, struggle with separating their golf scores and their self-image or self-worth. If you shoot 65, you're a great person. If you shoot 77, you hate yourself and you think you're a terrible human being. How should golfers work to separate the two and understand that their golf scores don't define you as a person?
Well, I would go back to everything we talked about earlier in this broadcast. That's why you have to have more than one identity. If your only identity is your golf score and you live to please other people based on what you shoot, they're going to love you when you shoot this score and disown you when you don't. I mean, they're going to build you up and put you on a pedestal, and then so they can then rip you to shreds. And that's why the more well-rounded your identity is, the easier it is to put life together.
Yeah, I kind of figured we were going to go that way with the answer, but I at least wanted to ask the question because you answered it so eloquently the first time we went through there. Yep. Usually at the end of each podcast, we do a 6-pack of questions. I'm just going to skip right to the 6th one that we ask every single person on here, just for time's sake. But so if 75-year-old Bob Rotella could go back and tell 22-year-old Bob Rotella the things that would allow him to live a successful and happy life, what would he tell him? And I assume it's probably a lot of the same stuff we talked about earlier, but if you could go back in time and, coming out of college, where were you, Connecticut, did I read?
I went to Castleton University undergrad and graduate school at the University of Connecticut.
Yep. Okay. Yep. So coming out of college, if 75-year-old Bob could go back and talk to 22, 23-year-old Bob, what would he tell him?
I think what I'd probably tell him is, you crazy mother, anything is possible. Yeah, I mean, if someone told me at 18 that I was going to get to do what I've done with my life, I would have probably said, how are we going to pull that off,
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a great example coming from a small town in Vermont that, yeah, I mean, anything's possible. But, when I look back, probably more than anything, I thank the good Lord that I had really good, strong parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other thing is I was surrounded. My dad had 6 sisters and a brother, and they just were so loving and yet very disciplined and had very strong values and beliefs that they inculcated to all of us. Which I look back and I really appreciate that a lot more now than I did then.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. No, that's a great answer. Well, Dr. Bob, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I hope to cross paths here with you at some point. Are you still traveling out on the tour a whole lot?
I'm doing it some, but not as much. But I'm still working with players a lot. They're still coming here, and I go to Florida for 3 months, and so I'm still working a lot. Yeah.
Yep. Well, nice. Well, hopefully, I'm going to be traveling a little bit with the tour as well. Hopefully, our paths cross soon. And I can't thank you enough for coming on.
Good talking to you. Good luck on your venture.
Thank you very much.
Have
Take
fun.
care of yourself.
Okay. Bye-bye, Steve.
Bye. All righty, folks. That was the great Dr. Bob Rotella. I know it was a little different pod than what we normally have. I didn't get to the whole 6-pack of questions, but I'm not interrupting that man when he's talking. And I know we were short on time. He's a busy man with a busy schedule. But I can't stress strongly enough how important what he said was. That was gold. I was hoping it was going to be good. That was so much better than I thought it was going to be even. He hit on all the points I was hoping he was going to touch on. And that being said, I'm going to give you a few other nuggets since it was a shorter pod that I think you would love. First of all, is his first book ever was Golf is Not a Game of Perfect. So I heard about this book back when I was in, I think it was my freshman year of college. I heard about it, went out and bought the book, and I read it that summer when I came back from college. And I went out the next week and I won my first ever amateur event. It was the Tri-State Amateur. It was ironically enough, it was in my home course in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh area. And 100% the reason I won was because of that book. And I know it sounds cliched to say, but I can honestly believe that. It was, and his teachings are so simple. It's kind of scary. It's all things that you probably already know, but you don't apply to the golf course, as weird as that sounds. When you read the book, you're like, yeah, no shit. Like, that's easy. Like, I get it. Like, of course, that's what you're supposed to be doing. But none of us ever do it. And subconsciously, once you get into a round of golf, you don't think about those things. You just focus on whatever whatever it might be, but you don't focus on what he teaches. And I think it's very, very important that you go get that book. First of all, read it. You won't regret it. It's 10 or 15 bucks. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to get a little better on the golf course. And secondly, one of the things that he taught me, it's funny. I met with him in 2016 at the Players Championship. I had called and said, hey, look, I'd like to get together with you for at least an hour. And so we set aside about 2 hours. We sat in the lunchroom at the TPC Sawgrass in the clubhouse. But I played a practice round that day with VJ Singh. And VJ's a friend of mine. He said, what do you got going on the rest of the day? And I said, I got Dr. Bob here at 3:00. I got to go in there and meet with him. And he's like, have you met with him before? I said, nope, I have not. He said, get ready to catch the keys. I said, catch the keys? What does that mean? He's like, when you see him, he's going to walk towards you and he's going to throw a pair of keys to you, or a set of keys to you. And you're going to reach out and you're going to catch them. And he's going to look at you and he's going to go, wow, how'd you do that? Like, I don't know. You threw the keys. I caught them. I don't know. And he's like, well, did you think about extending your arm? Because you extended your arm out. Did you think about closing your fingers? Did your eyes naturally move towards her? Did you have to tell your eyes to move towards the keys? No, I just grabbed the keys. You threw keys at me. I just grabbed them. And he's like, then why don't you do that with your golf swing? You spent years of your life trying to figure out, hey, if I extend my arm this way, this is what it does. If I close my fingers, this is what it does. So now it just comes naturally to you. He's like, it's the same thing as a golf swing. You stand on the range and you beat balls and you work on the swing and you take recordings of it and you look at film, you look at numbers, you do all this stuff so that when you get on the golf course, you don't have to think about those things. Subconsciously, your body is used to doing those things already. So just let it happen when you're on the golf course. If you want to work on the driving range, work on the driving range. But when it's time to play golf, play golf. Don't play golf swing. And it's remarkable to think about. And I've done that in my day-to-day life with my kids as well. When we start talking about subconscious, because I know subconscious is a big word for kids and they don't understand a lot of how it works. But I was trying to explain to my son that, when you go through pitching practice for baseball, you work with your coaches, you work on practice drills, you work, during team practices, you warm up before games, and now it's time to go out there and just let it happen. And when he wasn't sure what subconscious meant, I said, look, how do you brush your teeth? Do you work on holding a toothbrush a certain way? Do you have to think about which teeth you're scrubbing at a time? No, you just grab toothpaste, put it on there, you scrub your teeth all around because your body's used to doing it. And it's the same thing with pitching. Get out there. You've already done your practice. You've already done, stick to your fundamentals, but just let it happen. And Dr. Bob's teachings are based a lot on that stuff. And it's so simple to think about, but people just don't think about it that way. They think they get on they work on the driving ranges, then they go out on the golf course and they think golf swing the entire time. Okay, I got to get my hands here. I got to get the club this way. I got to lay it off a little flatter. I got to, keep my chest down, whatever it might be. There's 1,000 different thoughts and they don't need to be there, just work on it off the golf course. But when you get on the golf course, it's time to play golf, not golf swing. So there's my little tidbits for you. Hope they help a little bit. They're not going to compare to what Dr. Bob was teaching there. But thanks for listening. It was a great pod, and hope you guys enjoyed it. And we'll see you guys next week for another episode of The Uncomfortable Chats. And by the way, tell some friends. Don't be afraid to tell a few people that you get some value out of this pod. We want to get as many people as we can listening. So thanks for your time, everybody, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.